you start to lose your ability to actually connect with the client. I think you need to look at what's low value, what isn't actually going to add any impact. Let's start there, outsource. That is an efficiency gain for the business.
It's all about data protection and IP. We do have some restriction with some tools, it's because we don't know yet on how they retain your data, your information, your accounts. And of course, when you work with banks or very regulated environment, you can't take this risk for your clients. So you have to be a step ahead.
Hi, I'm Max, client partner here at Privalgo. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about AI and B2B marketing and where it's heading. And I'm joined here by Ylenia Meliti, SAP Fioneer, Head of EMEA Marketing, and Bianca Bass, CMO of Privalgo.
So I'm Bianca, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Privalgo. We are international payment specialists. And I'm really curious about the conversation we're having today about AI, bias, and breaking barriers.
Hello, I'm Ylenia. I'm the Head of Marketing at SAP Fioneer, a global banking software provider. I'm here today to talk about AI, biases, and barriers.
Welcome back.
Nice to see you again.
Lovely to see you. It's so long. Always nice to see you. In this episode, we're going to talk about AI, bias, and breaking barriers.
Our favorite topic.
Yes, it is.
And so as we know, AI is trained by humans, so bias is inevitable. So how do you see this bias showing up in marketing and tech?
I would say the answer is very simple because AI is based on data prompting. And once you insert those data inevitably brings bias because they look at historical pattern, behavior, values, opinion, nouns. So if you insert data that are already biased or based on stereotypes, your response, your outcome might affect your marketing effort and technology. And that's the key point.
Yeah, I so agree with that. I think that we have a collective responsibility to try and shift that bias. Mm-hmm. One of the data points that I've heard of, which I found quite alarming, was that 25% less women than men are adopting AI tools. If we're not actually inputting, if we're not contributing, if we're not giving feedback, as you said, that bias is going to be reflected right back. So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the skills gap, and we can get more into why, as women, we're not embracing it.
So on that note, do you think this AI adoption's making this just gender gap in marketing better, worse, or different?
I think I'm afraid to say it's making it worse. It has the potential to change it. And the reason why it's making it worse, because again, back to what I said before, AI is based on problems of data. And data are historical built, by no diversified team. If you look at engineering roles or tech role, are statistically man-led, which means in the room, you might have just one voice being represented. So I think the problem goes back to attracting the right pool of diversified talents, bring female voice more in the roster to make sure that those biases are more balanced, and then you can achieve fairness. So short-term answer is yes.
Agreed, definitely words. But there's an opportunity here.
Absolutely.
And that feedback loop is so crucial. I heard about a really alarming study that came out of Stanford that basically said that GPT was looking at people, man and woman, with the same experience, professional experience, but when they were generating resumes, they would make the woman's resume so much weaker than the man's. That's the world reflecting back at us.
And I think that goes as well back to what you're saying. It's so true because if you look at large language models, when you, there was a study as well, can't remember the source, but basically was comparing the word associated to woman opposite to word associated to man. And the study counted woman as family, childhood, housewife, and so on. Man was career success, career driven. And of course, those things get reflected into CV building or job profile or ads that are posted on Google. So it's really tied to the bias that the prompts have created.
Interesting. Do you think your AI agents know you're a woman?
I told him. I pretend it's a him, but it will be a her. So yeah, when it comes to personal question to AI, or more kind of like, let's say, no business related question, I always tend to introduce myself to AI to make sure he understands the audience. It's me, Wilma, marketer. I always give enough prompts and data about who I am, because I'm expecting quite customers and personalized response. When it comes to AI in my day-to-day job, sometimes I just introduce myself as my professional. So it doesn't matter if I'm female or man, it's more about what I'm trying to achieve in my audience. So I think that's a really good point. It's important to address the gender at the very beginning, because the response that we get are always biased by the gender as well, or what historical has been done.
I find it fascinating that you think of your AI tool as a man.
Yes.
Can you just dig into that for me? I want to psychoanalyze that a bit.
I think it's very simple for me, probably because the founder or the personality behind the big companies like OpenAI is a man, notoriously man.
Yeah.
Which is a problem.
Yeah.
So in my perception, psychological perception, I always tie those ideas, those tools, the funders, and people that have been focused and involved in the projects. And that's my thinking. And that's a bias indeed, along with that. But it's tied to the historical and the foundation of those projects. So I'm looking at who was behind the idea, who is behind this technology, and so on. And unfortunately, when we look at science or tech roles, majority are men, which is the shift that we would like to see.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And is your AI agent knows you're a woman?
Yes. I've done a lot of work to build a relationship. We set up the panel about this idea of thinking, okay, this is the smartest member of our team. Let's do weekly catch-ups. Let's check in. So we now
shout a name. Do you give AI a name as well?
I don't have a name. No, I haven't got that creepy with it. Maybe I should have.
Some people do. No, that's what I'm asking. Some people do. He's like an amateur, or let's say personality to AI.
Yeah. I'm a big Claude fan. So for me, I guess Claude, but I never say good morning, Claude, or anything like that. But I do feel if you ask it, tell me about who I am, tell me my weaknesses, my neuroses, my things that I need to work on, it can give it really scarily good steering.
Quite deep.
Yeah, so I know it knows a lot about me. I don't know very much about it. I'm still in the it territory. Yeah.
Which is probably appropriate to know, me.
Probably, if I get it. I so get it.
This is only going to deepen once the agentic AI is going to become more a standard and spread out. But I remember you mentioned in the previous conversations about setting up a panel of AI agents to give you feedback on some ideas, projects, strategies. And in that panel, have you diversified that panel?
Well, it depends on the project, what I'm looking for. But I just imagine, who would my dream mentor me on this? Who would my ideal board of directors be if I could design them, living or dead? And because there's such a deep knowledge of people in the public eye, really reflect that Mac. So I recommend doing that. If you want to just make your AI interactions more interesting, create a panel. Imagine that on this tool, my manager actually is Steve Jobs.
Okay, so we kind of, I think, agreed a little bit that AI is a little bit more male-gendered towards that. Do you think that comes out, do you have any examples where you can see that, where in some sort of campaigns or tools or creative approaches where AI has been used and you can see, that was a male AI that helped on this?
Well, I think it goes back to the point you made around the teams that are working on products. There was a really amazing podcast with somebody called Dr. Joy with Brene Brown, and she was talking about not just the gender biases, but the racial biases of these tools. It's so intrinsic to how they've been made. So I think it's everywhere. I think we all have to be really aware of it. And that's where the human lens still can't be beaten, because that's where we as women can bring our own lived experiences and perspectives and say, okay, it's generated this. Let me push this forward. It's got blind spots like everything else. Let me try and fill in the gaps.
I think this is the key point, to ensure there is enough diverse voice on the table. Because if we look historically, when it comes to data training and data prompting, engineering work mostly are male. And that's why also the content generated tend to be male biased.
So when bias shows up in data, who's responsible for fixing it?
Collective responsibility.
Collective bias should be influence inspired by the top, I think. Because marketers, at the end of the day, they work within an organization, right? And the organization top has the responsibility to build values, ethic, way of working. If the leadership doesn't embrace the idea of a diversified work environment in terms of gender, race, and so on, you won't expect the same to be embedded into the layers. So for me, it starts from the top. Yeah, leadership and the marketers, they can make it easier to embed it, integrate it, and process it. Yeah.
Culture is top down. Completely agree. And it applies to this. I think, like the world in general, we all have a role in shaping our part of it. Same goes for AI.
So how do you personally approach the balance between using AI in creative work versus keeping it human, authentic work?
Wow, that is the age-old question. I think that we have been really intentional within my team to identify what tasks can just be comfortably outsourced and which tasks actually we don't want to lose our edge, because it can be dangerous to just start generating, to do our monthly client newsletter. Let's just get AI to model it based on October's newsletter. You start to lose your ability to actually connect with the client base.
Yeah.
So I think you need to look at what's low value, what isn't actually going to add any impact. Let's start there, outsource. That is an efficiency gain for the business. Every founder, CEO, who wouldn't want that?
Mm.
But when it requires a little bit more discipline, thought, research, it has to start with you. That's how I try and differentiate it. But this is an ongoing balancing act.
Mm.
We're all using these tools, and you have to remember, we're all using them for the first time. This is new for all of us. We're still building cultures and working practices around them.
Yeah, it was a big thing about networking events, experiential being that, you know, a second sort of side of marketing outside of performance automation AI that is more kind of human to human.
And I think you raise a really good point saying it starts with us, it should finish with us. AI could be, let's say, in the middle, it could be part of it, but when it comes to especially high value content or campaigns or pieces of work that really have to resonate with your audience, there's a certain amount of work that AI can do for you, helping with the research, collecting data and so on. But then there's always the need of a human touch, of a focus group getting together with different ideas, different perspectives. Then AI can help you get this to scale or get this more efficient. So back to your point, it ends and it begins with human elements for sure.
And also, because you work on like a businesses that go across different cultures, different countries, different markets. And then I guess a lot of it comes down to, again, company processes in place. Yeah. Because if you suddenly open up, you know, the gate to create brand assets in different markets, different locations with the use of AI, you're going to have a very different outcome in one of the markets to very different. What happens to that consistency and brand control in that situation, right?
Well, this is where the AI agent that you work with can actually really help you. Because if you load it up correctly to understand your brand guidelines, understand your do's and don'ts, you can save time on that. You can have it really trained to be like, hey, this is the benchmark for all of our work. We need to make sure that we have these key messages, no matter what market we're operating in. Cultural nuance, cultural sensitivity, I don't think you can outsource to it. Yeah. But that foundational piece, 100% you can.
You could probably build a foundation, then if you're lucky enough to have a diversified team, ask your local people to really sense check and give feedback. I think feedback is really important as well, human feedback, based on the prompt and the foundation that your AI agent has built.
Yeah, and when we talk about diversity and the diversification of teams, let's make sure that we're looking across every dimension. It's not just gender, it's not just racial background. There is disability diversity, there's social economic backgrounds that you have to factor in. So really making sure that you have, as you say, good representation with your internal sign-off processes. Because we've all seen campaigns that should never have gone out there.
They do.
And they do. I mean, it's signed off by so many people. So it really does start with your culture.
At the moment, we're in the process to really build a compliance playbook of best practice and how to use AI. For compliance reasons, we're only allowed to use one type of AI. We can't use all the other tools, and it's really about how we can maximize the efficiency of Copilot in our case. So the usage is still limited, but the good thing is that from next year, we're building a user group based on best technology and best usage of AI. People from different departments, not just marketing, from products, from sales. So those people will come together to really build a potential framework to be, of course, presented to our compliance and IT team.
That is such a great idea to have different use cases in different departments.
Because we just gather a lot of feedback at the moment to be able to see the need of AI in very different ways, depending on the job they do. So we decided to create those user groups to really create and voice a unified voice, and then present that to our leadership as for implementation. On the legal side, there might be as well the need to actually hire persons that are dedicated to really look after the legal and compliance side of AI, which will be a brand new role.
And I think that's a role that we're going to see more and more of, but we don't really know what it looks like yet. I think with compliance, and it goes back to even before we use these tools, you've got to bring them on the bench. Yeah. You've got to be really open with them about, this is our process, this is how we got here. And yes, in a heavily regulated industry like ours, it is extra communication, but you've got to over-communicate. Because like any relationship, it builds up with trust over time. We have such an easier time with compliance. If you almost say to them, by the way, I'm doing this, just as an FYI, you don't need to action anything, but just so you know. And then they're going to understand that you respect their process. So bring them along.
And it doesn't come as a surprise at the end.
No surprises and no rush sign-offs, you know? You want to give them advance warning, and you want to get them understanding the thought process behind the word. Because so often we just think, oh, it's just a box ticking exercise, and it's not. We need them. And if you really get that relationship going, you can actually get their perspectives too.
And I think it's done as well. I'm sure in your company is the same. It's all about data protection and IP. We do have some restriction with some tools. It's because we don't know yet on how they retain your data, your information, your accounts. And of course, when you work with banks or very regulated environment, you can't take this risk for your clients. So you have to be a step ahead.
Yeah.
So of course, AI helps with efficiencies, doing more with less, doing it work smarter as well. So how would you do if you had a team member in your company that you have to, of course, come under the process of finding efficiencies through AI, but they're very AI skeptic?
I think for me, it's about making them understand how AI can fill some gaps and solve some problems. We all use AI to maximize our quality of work or accelerate what we do, so there must be a tangible benefit. But I think as long as you define that benefit and you can measure that benefit, you can convince any audience. Of course, it's a different story if you're talking to a person in your team, for example, a marketer that tells me, Ylenia, I don't want to use AI. Fine, you want to spend hours creating one piece of content and not having any other tool that helps you? That's your choice, but that's not the most effective way to work now. If I need to talk to my leadership team, it's about showing them what they're missing out. We're spending tons of time to, review data when we can have this in one click.
I echo that completely. I think leading that conversation with a lot of empathy to say, you are right to be skeptical of AI. However, as a workforce, we can't overlook the fact that all of our competitors have efficiency gains from using these tools. This isn't going anywhere. So what are we going to do about it? We need to find your way of working with it. As with anything in life, we'll each have our own relationship to it. You have to find yours. And as marketers, so often we're actually salespeople, internal salespeople, and us selling ideas all the time and trying to positively influence. That's our role with AI tools as well.
What we see across all our clients, AI become one of the top KPIs out there.
Yeah.
How does it look in your company?
So we say a top KPI, we're talking about the adoption of.
adoption of and the usage of, so implementations from, of course, efficiency lens?
I think in my company, we're still far away from that because we're still kind of figuring out how we use it, what's the best way to use it. And to really measure in terms of KPI and outcome, we need to have established process and ways. So for me, it's more about taking the people in the team through this educational journey. So it might take time. I do see a point where AI could be a KPI, but in a sense, our AI has accelerate or analyze your campaigns, for example, your marketing efforts or your email rate and so on. So it needs to be tied to a traditional marketing KPI in my view. So for example, number of leads, let's say, from a campaign, how many of those content were, let's say, generated or supported by AI to achieve that goal. So I'm thinking I will tie the AI KPI to some traditional KPI for sure.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Company-wide, we're not there either. But as marketing teams, I think we can start to bring that in. And maybe we can be the ambassadors for that model.
So we talk a lot about AI adoption, efficiencies, everybody's, hot topic out there. So what would be your biggest advice to the companies within the fintech and the payments industry who are starting to adopting on this journey? Your biggest learnings, your biggest tips that you want to share with them?
I am concerned about the adoption gap between men and women. And I would say to everybody, just embrace these tools. They're not going anywhere. Your competition, other people in your roles at comparable companies, they're using these tools. So find the value that you need for your business. Experiment. Be the person internally who's actually sharing those learnings. We said on the panel that as marketers, we're really well placed to be the ones who champion these tools and make sure you're having fun with it. There's a lot out there that I think practically you can do. You should be updating your AI agent of what's going on in the business. Of course, within policy and reason, you don't want to give all your trade secrets away, but you should be sharing, this is what's going on, this is the feedback that we received. So treat it as you would any relationship that you're building up over time and invest in it because it will pay dividends.
Completely agree. I think it's about don't be afraid. Embrace the innovation, both on personal and business level. On a personal level, there's so much content out there. You can really study AI. You can really learn about all the tools, the history of AI. If you're interested, you can really attend a lot of networking session and event. There's so much content and consumption over there. On a business level, as a marketing, you can be really the advocate. You can push the boundaries and educate your team and bring them in the journey with you. Talk to them, seek for feedback, see what do they think about AI, what understanding they have about AI. And I think that starts with connection, talking about AI as a common goal and common implementation in the company.
Yeah, and if your company isn't doing regular lunch and learns on great AI use cases or sharing openly, our team in this department is actually really getting value from this, that's a problem. Because I think there is a bit of a culture at the moment, and hopefully in 2026 this will die, where people are a bit in secrecy about it. They don't want to admit how much they're using it or how they're using it. We're all using it. So, one way or another. So let's stop that. Let's actually start sharing openly, and we're all going to become collectively smarter.
I love it. Yeah, definitely. I have one more extra question. This is more personal. So what is the one thing you use AI as a first thing in the morning or at least once a day that if someone took AI away from you and you'd be like, oh, how did I manage to do this without AI before?
On a personal and professional level, it could be at work, but it could be more personal. On a personal level, I would be very, very, very concerned if anyone got access to my ChatGPT, because it's become a therapist, an astrologist. It's got me fully. So I'd be very sad about that. On a professional level, actually strategic thinking and sparring with it and debating with it as a debating partner on some of the things that I'm thinking about broadly around the rebrand, I would really miss it for that.
So completely agree on the business level, definitely strategic thinking, sounding board, comparison, research. So it's a no-brainer. The personal level, my ChatGPT is a sort of handyman. I always ask things like how to fix my boiler, because I'm not able to fix my boiler and I don't want to tell anyone how to fix my hot water. And the response are always surprising, so good. Yeah, I've been able to fix all the issues in my flat recently thanks to ChatGPT. So I would say my history of it's all about fixing things at home, and it's been so valuable.
Impressive fixing boiler.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, try it. Just try it. It's amazing. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your time. I loved exploring world of AI with you. And to the next one.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.